Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of 50 Conversations with 50 Strangers. I have to be honest, I didn't know if this one was going to actually happen. I, you show up in this Zoom room and you don't really know who's coming, if they're coming, what's going on. But the woman that I'm about to speak to was caught on a call longer than she thought it was going to go, came very apologetically into the room and told me I'm so sorry. And yet this is life, if we're not flexible enough to give each other the space to do what has to happen, then what are we really doing here anyway? Fortunately, my schedule today was not booked. When I came up with this idea of 50 conversations with 50 strangers, I've been completely inundated. Some of my days I'm having 8 conversations with it. I thought it was going to take me 50 days to have these conversations. I'm already at probably like 48 or 49 conversations, and I still have a ton more. And I think I will just continue to do it. So because I love what's happening through it. So, short of me creating a monologue, which you can see I can easily do, I want to welcome Dr. Claudia Solorzano to this conversation. Dr. Claudia, thank you so much for coming. How are you today?
Excellent. Good. I'm wonderful. Thank you. How are you?
I am good, and we'll go back and research and go into that question a little more. But normally when I do a podcast, I research people. I know a lot about them. Um, I don't really know anything about you. I know a little bit. I know you're a doctor. I know we had a little conversation beforehand, right?
Yes,
But
yes.
for those people who are listening, will you tell us who you are and what's important to you?
Absolutely. I am a doctor of psychology, clinical psychology, and I've been helping people for over 14 years through some of their toughest times. It's been a wonderful journey for me to see people heal. So that's what I love to do. I consider myself a vessel to help others feel better. So that's what I'm here on earth to do. I'm also a holistic life coach. So I help people that are not having difficult times, but are wanting to grow in their life and just get them to this new space of achieving whatever it is that they want to achieve. I'm a mother, which is what I absolutely love to do also. My little girl is 6 years old, and I have two stepsons that are wonderful too. And I'm a very busy homemaker on top of everything else.
Yeah.
So yeah, I balance all that out.
So you've got your hands full. I mean,
Absolutely,
you can,
every day.
it's not like you're not just sleeping in during coronavirus.
No, not at all.
So
Yes,
let me circle back because, so often, first of all, thank you for showing up and thank you for all the work you're
absolutely.
doing. What a
Thank you for having
beautiful
me.
contribution that you're giving to the world. What a nice thing to be able to say you do. And you can see in just the way you present it how much you enjoy it and
Yes,
how honored you feel to be part of it. And it's really an honor.
absolutely.
It's really an honor to meet you and to meet
Thank
people
you.
who are so in touch with what they're doing and so on fire with it. So thank you for
Thank you.
doing what you're doing. Um,
Absolutely. Thank you.
we ask this question so often. We did it to each other when we started. And the question is, how are you? And so often we go, fine, great, good. And we go and we breeze on to the next question. But we're living in a very interesting time now. We have a global pandemic that's keeping our kids home from school, that's isolating
Mhm,
us and from the lives
mhm,
that we know. We
mhm.
have, at least in America and around the world, we have these race protests that are going on and
Yes,
that are so, I mean, in my mind, so vitally important because for 400 years, the Black people have not been heard and have been treated in a certain way. And they're really trying to get heard. Their voices are trying to get heard. It reminds me when I was in the 70s when I heard the same messages saying the same way,
mhm,
and we've grown a little, but not that much has
not
changed,
that much.
right?
Mhm.
Um, and and also on top of that, we thought the Me Too movement was a big thing, and that's almost receded into the background now, but that was only a year or two ago also. So the
Mhm.
last few years have really shaken the foundations of most of us as people. I know as a man, the way I deal with women has completely changed. The way I look at the way I deal with people of color is completely changing. The way I deal with my own health is completely changing. There aren't many bigger issues on the table than those. So, with that in mind, given the fact, knowing that you have somebody here that really is interested, how are you really?
Thank you for asking. I know it's just going to sound interesting, but I'm very thankful. I notice that I have a lot of gratitude every day because I'm having to learn how to live life and in a way that I've never lived before. Um, so I dive into my inner world quite a bit these days for a few hours, 2 to 3 hours a day. And so I'm very thankful for that. I feel like I'm learning a lot. I do a lot of energy medicine. So I continue to practice that. So that's the part that's always happening in my life. At the same time, I feel people's emotions. I'm an empath. So I feel some sadness and I feel some fear when I spend too much time with people that are scared, and that are caught in the space of fearing the unknown and all that. And so, I feel what's going on with people. I go for a jog every morning, and I notice that just in the morning, people have to jog away from me, because you're trying to stay away from people. Now that makes me feel sad.
Yeah,
You know, I also have learned to appreciate the human connection. I'm thankful for Zoom, definitely, but there is nothing like sitting in front of a person,
yeah,
face to face, energy to energy, body to body. Um, I miss people, that connection,
yeah,
that even if it's a stranger, that freedom to just talk to somebody and enjoy the moment and the conversation. You don't seem to have that right now.
yeah.
So I have a mix of different feelings, but I'm thankful every day that I'm still here on this earth, and I'm trying to spread the love and the gratitude and the good feelings to as many people as I can. And so I continue to do the work in the midst of all this.
So one of the reasons why I love this opportunity to have 50 conversations with 50 strangers
Mhm.
is because we've never spoken to each other, have we?
Mm-mm.
And
No.
I feel so close to you
Mhm.
already just from what you said. You resonate so much with how I resonate and live my life.
Mhm.
And we would never know that if we didn't have a conversation.
No.
You were just a Facebook friend that I don't know how we even became friends or why we even became
I think it's
friends.
through a group. I think it's the
We
group.
may have gotten through a group. And so, and then all of a sudden we stop for a minute and pause because of the glory of coronavirus. And I'm not negating all the pain that it's caused and all the suffering and all the death and all the illness.
Mhm.
But there's been something in when you said, like, I've spent a lot of time going within right now.
Mhm.
I've been saying to people a lot lately, when you can't go outside, why not go
Go within.
within?
Go
Right?
within.
It's the only place left to go.
It's the
And it's
only
almost
place.
as if the world is trying to say to us, we've been outside so long. Why don't you
Mhm.
take this time to go within? Do you
Absolutely.
believe the world or situations speak to us?
Absolutely. I really do believe that everything can be a lesson, and even our most painful experiences can bring so much growth to us. And so um, I don't really think it's just about the coronavirus. It's about growing. It's about reevaluating the way we exist. It is about going inward, which is one of my happiest places, but it's a foreign place to many people.
Yeah.
It's about loving our bodies and honoring health. It's about getting through this together. I feel, we can't do it by ourselves. To me, it's about raising our vibration, because energy is very real, and our frequency creates a reality. And so it's about doing the things that are unseen, getting out of the world that is seen and getting into the unseen. So
You could
that's
you could be a spokesperson for my book, The Mosaic. I mean, just this book that I think is right over here. Where is it? I never know where the heck it is on this green screen. So it's a story about a boy who loses his parents 2 years apart on the same day.
Mm,
And when he asks the adults where his parents are, they tell him they're in a place called heaven.
mm,
So he's just a little boy. And he sets out in search of the place called heaven because he wants to be with his parents again. But the people he meets along the way are not the rabbis and the priests and the ministers and the swamis and the medicine men and the Aborigines elders. They're the trash man and the homeless man, the blind woman and the gardener, the juice man and the waitress. They're common, ordinary people. And he wonders, why am I meeting these people? Like the adults told me to find heaven. What would these people show me about heaven? But then he says to himself, I'm here. I'm sitting with them. They're led to me. Why don't I just sit here and listen to them tell me their stories? And in every single case, when he does that and he listens to their stories, the people he sees in front of him after that, after speaking to them and listening to them, is an entirely different person than the person he saw when he first came up.
absolutely.
And when that happens over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, it makes him wonder, do I even see the world that is, or do I only see the world that I am?
Yes.
And I wonder what the world would look like if I could see the world the way it is.
Right.
And at that moment, he looks over to his right and he sees a monk unzipping the sky and inviting him into a parallel reality where he meets the wise one who's the keeper of the mosaic. I always pause there, as I think that makes a good trailer for people. If you're interested, I'd love to have you read the book, or people
Thank
listening
you.
read the book, because I think it will. But what it's big, one of the big things it talks about is, how do we see what we're not able to see?
Right.
So
Hmm.
much of the situation that exists in the world today is everybody is locked in their silos of
Yes.
like-mindedness.
Yeah.
And whereas that used to be the most wonderful thing in the world, now it's creating big areas of open land between that silo and another silo, and the space between them is getting wider and deeper.
Hmm.
And we are alienating each other by our like-mindedness.
Yes.
We were never meant, in my opinion, to be in silos. We were meant to be in open fields where we commingled with each other,
Hmm.
like an unlike mind, and learns from each other.
Absolutely.
From your shaking your head and your words that you're saying, I get that that resonates with you. But what do
Hmm.
you believe about that? What do you believe about these like-minded communities, and the need to get outside of them?
I think that, well, what I believe that there's a certain comfort and a feeling of identifying with like-minded people. But I also feel that it's important to mingle with others that are not like us, because we can learn from each other.
Yeah.
And I think we can grow from one another. And I really do believe that everybody has something to share that is very beautiful. Their own life story or their own inner reality or whatever it is. Unfortunately, what I see now is, if you're not like-minded, people
Yeah.
start getting very angry.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm noticing right now. And so, sometimes you're stuck with people that are not like-minded in your own home or in your own family. So you just kind of, for me, I just don't say anything. I just keep all this positive stuff to myself
Yeah.
sometimes and just share it with others. But, I think there's beauty in coexisting, even when people are at different frequencies, different life experiences, different realities. Um, we are all very similar in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
and that's what I believe. We've just walked different lives, but there's a lot of similarity to our feelings and what we're hoping to understand and what we're experiencing, and even how we'll leave this this reality that we're living right now. So I think we're very like-minded in a lot of ways. We just might not know it. I
Yeah,
think
I
there's,
love that.
right?
You're already answering some of my questions for my lightning round, so I'm going to speed into the lightning round.
Okay. Sorry.
No, I love it because I just feel very attuned to you, and I feel like, look how easy conversation is, and we would never even know that's possible, right?
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
so lightning round, you can take as much time as you want, but my questions are short. Are you a
Okay.
dog person or a cat person?
I am a dog person.
Me too.
Hmm. Hmm.
Coffee or tea?
Um, can I do both?
You can. You
Yeah,
can. Um, would you say you are a person who is in the box or a person who's out of the box?
there's no box.
There is no box. I love it.
No. Got rid of that a long time. I blew that one a long time ago, and people have gotten very upset with me. But I said there is no box. I'm sorry. It's all feeling. It's all soul call. Whatever my soul says, that's what it is. Uh,
So let's jump out of the lightning round for a minute because I love when people answer in unique ways. For those people who feel that they are in a box or feel that they're out of a box, but being out of a box burdens them, how
mhm.
would they get to the place where there would be no box?
I've spent a lot of time thinking about that and getting to this place, and I believe that one of many things, but the one that I feel helped me just completely erase the lines of the box and embrace this open space is self-love and acceptance. Just
Love it.
fully embracing it, and it feels really good.
So, can I assume from that answer, and please tell me if I can I assume from that answer that it's us that creates our box, not other people?
I think that's a wonderful question. I believe, um, I'm not all knowing, but my experience just with working with thousands of people and obviously being my own self study is some people create boxes for us when we're growing up, when we're little. They put us in little boxes or big boxes, but usually they're smaller than what we would like. And we believe we belong there. And we continue to leave that box there because that's our reality. That just becomes our construct of how we're supposed to live. And then if you're daring enough to just break that box down, you realize that it was never your box to begin with, and you might not even want one. So I think that that's the process that I
Love it.
believe.
So stay with me
Yes.
because you also mentioned that what brought you out of the box or boxlessness was self-love. So
Mm-hmm.
now insert self-love into the model that you just said. We've been put in a box as kids. That
Mm-hmm.
box is too small for us. We don't fit in
Mm-hmm.
it,
Mm-hmm.
but it's comforting to us because it's all we've known. It's become our home.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, we realize that we are bigger than the box and we either break it or step out of it, but how does the box then disappear?
Well, I think the box disappears when we're willing to break it down ourselves. Um, I believe that as we get to know ourselves, we look at the box, and I have a visual of even the box, each side of the box, the sides, the front, the back, the top. It could represent something. It could represent me saying, you should do this for a living, or you should be that, or you should exist this way. And you begin to realize I'm not any of those things, and I don't identify with that anymore. And so breaking down the box means opening space so you can fully embrace who you really are, because a lot of times we aren't who we think we are until we break down these walls.
Yeah, love it. So for those of you who are listening at home, rewind a little bit here and just take time and pause and just find out it's not that Dr. Claudia has the answer for you, The
Mhm.
question is, what is your answer? And how does what she's saying resonate with you? What does it bring up in you? Where do you put yourself in that place so that you get a chance to experience this conversation with us, even though you're not on the phone with us, but you can certainly give us your comments below, right?
Absolutely.
Um, I know both of these are really, we're back to lightning round.
Okay.
I know both of these are really important,
Mhm.
but I'd like to ask you, if possible, to choose what's most important for you at this moment.
Mhm.
Is it more important for you to speak your voice and have a platform to be heard? Or is it more important for you to create a platform so that others can be heard and listen to the voices of others?
I'm going to say the platform for me to be heard right now at this time. And the reason for that is because I've learned that when I speak, because I'm very, very real and transparent, it then motivates people to speak and open and create and all that. And so it opens the door. So that's what it would be.
And that's obvious in the way you're speaking and showing up here today. So everything you're saying is mirrored and showcased by the quality, the resonance of your voice, the sound of how you come across, the gentleness of the way you present. So I agree with. I mean, you're showcasing that. So oftentimes people say that and don't showcase that, but it's beautiful to watch you showcase that and show up that way.
Okay.
The obvious lob over the net that you just gave me is, now that you have that avenue to and that platform right here in front of you now to say what it is you want to say. What is it you want to say? What would you like to tell the world now that maybe you've never had a chance to tell it before? Maybe you've told it all the time. But to go underneath the obvious answer, what is it you would really like to say to the world now?
No, I, I, I would say to keep your eyes on the light and on the love, because that's what's gotten us through every single time. I believe that the energy of love, the energy of hope, the energy of faith, those are the ones that have gotten us here, and they're never going to fail us. And so if you continue to keep your eyes in that space, we're going to get through, all of us, and we'll not fight each other. We can help each other and believe in each other and encourage each other. And that will raise our vibration, and that will help us get through. The virus is not bigger than us. We're bigger than the virus and bigger than anything that happens to us.
Yeah. And the people that are so caught, like, I love that message, by the way, and thank you for sharing it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't believe there's anything better. A friend of mine once said, when you walk into a dark room, it is really, really dark. But the way to end the darkness is just simply to walk over and turn on the light.
Absolutely.
And in some ways, that's what you're really just saying. So
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Mm-hmm.
And in some of the conversations that I've had with people that are invested in their hatred or invested in their point of view, even in those conversations some of us have within our own family that you were talking about, like
Yes.
how does that actually, how do we take that beautiful, clear, simple message of just love and have hope and have faith,
Mm-hmm.
how do we do that when people don't seem to, it doesn't, it's just, people seem to continue to attack and hurt and harm
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
yell and scream? Do you have any sense, not only from your psychology background, but from your spiritual background, from the heart and soul of who you are, which is this beautiful human being?
Absolutely. Um, if you embody what you're trying to teach, that is really the best way to impact others. If we try to tell them, hey, look at the light and look at the love, they might look at us like we're crazy, especially
Right.
during this time. But if you are the light, if you are the love, everybody is looking for a way out of their pain. And if you are showing it in every every layer of who you are, people are going to remember that. And one day they may ask you, hey, how do you do that? How do you get there? And then you can tell them, you can show them. And then there might be some that might never want to come.
Yeah.
And so you accept, right? That's okay. But ultimately, somewhere down the line, they might remember you.
Beautiful.
And so I believe that you are that light, you are that love. Yeah.
I've had a very interesting life. I've had the chance to be with some of the richest people in the world, not as their students, but as their friends. I've sat at their dinner tables. I've sat in their living rooms. I've met their children. I've met their parents. And they've been kind enough to seek my counsel and kind enough to give me counsel on just a whole assortment of things in life. And I've also had the same opportunity at the same moment in time to sit on street corners with some of the poorest of the poor and been lucky enough to share their cardboard boxes with them and been kind enough to seek their counsel, and they've been kind enough to ask my counsel. And one of the things that I found is no matter how much money a person has, no matter what color their skin, no matter what border they live behind, no matter how big their house or how torn their cardboard box, every single one of them wanted the same thing. They wanted to be loved and accepted. They wanted to be listened to and heard. And they wanted to be acknowledged for what they were saying and validated. Not one person in my 65 years ever said to me, Danny, it's important you agree with me. You have to agree with me. Because when they felt loved and accepted and listened to and heard and acknowledged and validated, they knew I had the freedom of my own belief systems and I could think whatever I wanted to think, just like they could. And that's what made our relationship beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And amongst all the people who have taught me, I'm sorry, I'm going to go on a little bit because I just want to share this story with you and get your response.
Absolutely.
Amongst all the beautiful teachers and people that I've had in my life that have really shared their heart and soul with me, and it's been many, the person that has really changed my life more than anybody has been my daughter. I have a 30-year-old developmentally delayed daughter, and she can't speak like you and I speak. When she speaks, people don't understand her. But because we're so close, she counts on me to understand her. It's almost like she needs me to understand her because I'm the one person. And over time, it's gotten better, thank God. But in the beginning, I was the one person that she could at least feel heard her. But Dr. Claudia, sometimes I couldn't hear her. I couldn't understand her. I couldn't. It wasn't that I wasn't trying to. I just couldn't understand her words. And when I didn't understand her words, what she would do is she would start to say them louder. But it wasn't the volume at which she spoke. It was the clarity, and that's what. And so now she was only saying it louder, still unclear, and I still couldn't understand her, except every once in a while when she increased the volume, she changed the way she said it slightly, and it jarred something in me so that I heard it. When I didn't understand it, though, then what would happen is she would throw a tantrum. And we could be in the middle of a restaurant. We could be sitting at a friend's house. We could be taking a walk downtown. We could be at the beach. I could be in the process of giving her a bath. We could be at my workplace. It really didn't matter. When she needed to throw a tantrum, she threw a tantrum. And when that didn't work, then she would come running at me and try and rip my shirt or bite me. I like to think I'm a fairly sensitive, intuitive, empathic man, which I believe I am. But none of that mattered because over a course of about 15 years, I just couldn't get it. I just couldn't understand what to do. And it happens sometimes 3, 4, 10 times a day. Thank God, not every day, but often enough that it brings color to my hair, which is white. Um, and finally, in the midst of her rage, one day I said to her, Elisa, you know I love you more than anything in this world. I adore you. You also know I want to understand you more than anything in this world. But sometimes when you speak, I just can't understand your words. And it pains me to no end that I can't do that. Can you find a way to communicate to me without words? And in the midst of her rage, she just had this smile that completely melted my soul. And she looked at me with piercing eyes that looked through me. And in perfect English, she said, "I am Daddy." And I said, "I'm sorry, what did you say? You are Daddy? What the heck does that mean? How are you doing that?" And she took her finger and she put it to the side of her head. And I understood from that she was putting thoughts into my head. And I said, "You
Mm.
little son of a gun, have you been putting thoughts in my head all this time? Because there's some times that I thought that's what you were doing, but I just didn't trust it." And she started to laugh as if it was the first time she was ever understood. And her
Mm.
laugh became contagious. And that contagiousness caught me in the laughter, and my laugh then became contagious. And we probably laughed for about 15 minutes together, nonstop, which seemed like it could have been 6.5 years or whatever it is. I mean, we were just absorbed in that feeling of love and laughter. Dr. Claudia, if that conversation would have been the end of it and we would have been okay, what I need you to know is that from that point on, she's never yelled, she's never tantrumed, she's never attacked.
It's beautiful.
And if that's where the story would have ended, it would have been great for me. It would have fulfilled me in a way that I can't even tell you how
Mm-hmm.
fulfilling that is, because now I have a way of understanding my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
But what I realized is in the work that I do with people, not unlike your work, I don't have the doctor in front of my name, but thank God. But um, I have my own experiences, and I work with people in all sorts of places. I work with government leaders. I work with CEOs of companies. I work with schools. I work with military. What I saw is every single situation that I work in follows the same pattern of my daughter. When people speak and they don't get heard, they scream.
Yes.
When they scream and they don't get heard, they create havoc. They try and disrupt the point of view. They try and create tension. They try and create fights. They start to do something that makes people uncomfortable. And when that doesn't work, then they try and destroy. They can shoot up a town square. They can blow up a building. They can end a marriage. They can end the reputation, try and end the reputation of somebody. They can do all sorts of things. And it comes from this simple, simple, simple lesson taught to me by this beautiful 20, 30-year-old developmentally delayed kid. Because if we retrofit it back, when we learn to listen to what people are trying to say to us, they don't need to yell, they don't need to tantrum, and they don't need to attack. What do you think of that from your professional and your beautiful spiritual point of view in terms of the world that we're living in? Because I feel like listening, I want to create a revolution of listening.
Mm-hmm.
And in that revolution of listening, I don't think the world would be where we are if we would just take the time to say to people that are really angry with us, you don't have to get angry. You can be angry if you want, but I'm here to listen to you. What is it you want to tell me? I just want to hear you. I don't want to fight you. I just want to understand you. What is it you want to say? Do you believe it would diffuse the energy?
Absolutely. Something about listening is how you listen. If you listen to learn and you listen to understand the other person better without you wanting to impose what you believe, it feels good to the other person and it helps them open up more. It helps them share what's going on inside of them, because I believe there's something very beautiful about when a person speaks, which is, excuse me, their soul is communicating. And so if their soul is communicating, that's a very powerful thing. But a lot of times people interrupt because their soul is saying, no, 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 I don't agree, or I don't like what you're saying. And that's where the conflict starts. But if we could just listen to learn and understand, to respect, to honor what that person is saying, even if it's completely different from what we believe, I think a lot of good can come from
Yeah.
that. And so, yes, it would diffuse a lot of things if we could listen, but we're so upset. There's so many emotions inside of us. Whenever I listen to the governor talk, I get a lot of emotions myself. And so I have to listen as well. Our emotions and what we want right now gets in the way. But if we could just listen,
Yeah.
If we can just listen, we can learn a lot. And the person speaking can then feel heard and will not be so angry,
Yeah.
and will feel understood, and will feel like their opinion or their mentality or whatever matters. And maybe if they're listened to, they can also be open to some feedback, or
Yeah.
someone else talking and saying, hey, you heard me, let me hear you. So it's that
Yeah.
reciprocity, right?
Yeah.
So there's a beautiful thing about that dance of listening to the soul and then letting the other soul speak.
Yeah. In the work that I'm doing right now, I don't even look for the reciprocity of it. I just, because what happens is for me, when I sit and listen,
Mm-hmm.
people either become curious or not curious.
Absolutely.
If they become curious and say, wow, no, like I have never been heard like that before. Like, what is it about you that makes it possible for you to listen like that?
Mm-hmm.
Then it's invited,
Mm-hmm.
right? But
Absolutely.
too often we invite ourselves into conversations,
Absolutely.
right? So,
Absolutely.
okay, I love that. Um, we're going to try and get back into the lightning round.
Okay. Sounds good.
There are only a few more questions. We might as well go through it, right? Um,
Okay.
do you feel like you fit into the world around you, or have you felt different?
I've been different since I was born, I think.
Yeah.
And I have always felt different. Yes.
So as soon as we go into the lightning round, I have to come out again.
Okay, no problem.
Sometimes I can't stand my mind because it's just like I want to know too much more. Um, one of the things that I've been
Sorry, I
really,
like to laugh a lot.
I love that. I don't ever apologize for being happy with me. One of the things that really intrigues me
Hmm.
is through these conversations, a large majority of people have said, I really don't feel like I fit in at all. Like I've always felt different. And I can't tell if that's because the people that are responding to my messaging are that type of person, or if it's
Hmm.
because inherently most of us don't feel like we fit in, but
Hmm.
we don't share the fact that we don't fit in with the world enough to actually realize we do fit in. One woman answered it really beautifully. She said, "Yeah, I fit in because it's a world full of misfits that don't fit in." So I
I
fit,
like that. I like that.
right? And I think everybody that answered "I don't fit in" would feel that same way.
It's a bunch of crazies out there, and I fit right in with them.
Yeah, and yet the fact that we don't fit in sometimes isolates us and makes us feel alone and makes us feel different or not as good, or all the things that then start to put layers upon stories upon things that just aren't even true, when in reality we are just like everybody else. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that there's something about how people come across one another. Nothing is coincidence in my book. So I believe that there is something about the people responding, that might be different from the masses, right? There are some populations that think a certain way, and they have big boxes around them or things like that. But I also think that there's a lot of pretending going on. I think people pretend to feel like they fit in,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of uh, looky-loos and looking to see what looks like is the fitting in image and language and all that. And when you are bold enough and ready enough, you just say, forget it. I don't fit in. I don't think I've ever fit in. And that's okay. And so I think that's what it is. I think there's a lot going on. I know people that if you ask them that question, they would say, I fit in just great. What about
Yeah.
you?
Yeah.
You know, um, but it takes a certain level of vulnerability to be able to say, hey, you know what? I don't feel that I do, and I don't know that I ever will.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that now, finally. And so there's a lot of those, and maybe those are the ones responding to you because they're finally in that place in their life where they're like, yeah, I don't fit in and I don't want to. I don't want to anymore.
You sort of touched on, and I just want to come back for a minute. We have no chance of making it through this lightning round, but it's okay. You touched on this word that I think is so important, called vulnerability.
Absolutely.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit as to why people don't feel safe being vulnerable?
Absolutely. I think that, that term, the word vulnerability, has so much, it carries so much, but I think being vulnerable is like walking around naked, um, to the world, even to yourself, to your partner, um, being okay with who you are completely and embracing pain. There's a possibility of pain in that space. There's a possibility of being injured, but you're willing to take it all for your truth. You're saying, this is my truth. This is who I am. This is what I think. This is what I feel. And you don't know what's going to happen when you do that. And you feel so almost like something could happen, like something could happen. You don't know what could happen because we always want approval in some way. We're taught to seek approval since we're very little. But you just put it all out there. You're so transparent. And eventually it becomes your reality, your way of existing. Some people might say, I don't really like anything that you're saying and I need to walk away. And you're so vulnerable, but yet you can embrace that too.
Yeah.
And I like to think about the most vulnerable place that we are is a lot of times with our children and with our spouses or partners, and telling them our insecurities and telling them our fears, or saying, hey, I feel really crazy today, or I feel really weird, or I have these thoughts at 5 a.m. Can I share them with you? We're so afraid to be judged. We really want to be liked. But when we're open to being vulnerable, we're saying, here's my inner world. Here's my story. Would you still love me and take me as I am? That's really big,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And just because we're there, are we really asking that of people outside of ourselves, or are we really asking that to ourselves first?
I believe it's to ourselves. When we've done the inner work, which I honor completely, we realize that we have to ask ourselves. Before we've done the work, we think that we have to get it from others, only to come to find out that it'll never happen. It'll never happen, or it's only a temporary acceptance or love. But when we can give it to ourselves, and that's when we can truly be vulnerable. It's okay. Everything is okay.
There's a lovely story in my book, The Mosaic, about one of the characters that Mo meets along his journey, and it's the gardener. And I won't tell the whole story because you can read it if you choose to. But he uses the analogy of weeds and the weeds that grow in your garden. And when you are able to clean your garden of the weeds, especially those clumps that when you pull them and they break in your hand, and you haven't gotten the roots out, you've just, but on the surface they look okay. What do you actually do at that point?
Mm-hmm.
Do you just keep going and continue weeding because the garden has a lot of weeds? Or do you get out your little shovel and dig those clumps out?
Mm-hmm.
And when the garden is free of those weeds, then you tend not to see the weeds in other people's gardens.
Absolutely.
And so there's such a beautiful process in just cleaning up our own garden.
Absolutely.
And being at peace with ourselves, and then walking into the world. Because then when I'm at peace with myself, you can say to me, Danny, you're the biggest asshole you ever want to meet, but I know who I am. And to the extent I might agree with you and say, I don't know that I'm the biggest but I definitely have some of those qualities, I'm willing to take a look at it. Right. But I don't respond by saying, oh God, she saw my weeds.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because my garden's weedless, and there might be weeds that have grown that I say, oh, really? Tell me more about that.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me how you feel about that. And I allow you the space then to, share with you. And then that becomes the trash man in my book, where he says, just put everything that you feel and think and want to tell me, put it all in this trash can. And I want, this isn't the time for me to defend myself or rationalize. Just put it all in here. Tell me everything. Because the compassionate part of that experience is, what do you experience when you no longer have to carry that around with you? It's all over here. And let me see you like that and let you see you like that. It's beautiful, and just how simple a story of an ordinary person like a trash man or a gardener can really have so much depth to it if we take a look to listen to what they're actually saying.
Absolutely.
I am intent to get through the lightning round.
Something came to my mind right now as you were saying that. Let me
Tell
see if
me,
it's
tell me.
still here. Um,
The
there's
trash
something
man,
that
the gardener, the
no, the gardener. One of the things that I do now, which is really, I think it's funny, but if I get upset with, if I'm having a conversation or something happens and I get upset, what I used to do before is I used to try to fix the situation between me and that person, and have that person understand me, and then I thought that my emotions would quiet down when they would just get what I was saying or thinking. Now what I do is I say, oh, I have more to work on. There's another weed there. And I go and I make sure that I make that time for myself, and I look inside and I say, what's still there? Because that person has actually given me the gift of reflecting back to me something that I still can heal.
yeah, love it.
So it's the weeding process. It's ongoing, right? And so
Love it.
that's what I do now.
Absolutely. Absolutely ongoing. I love it. All right. Jump back in. Are you a head person or a heart person?
Present day, now it's heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jump out. What was the pivot point that moved you from being a head person to the heart person? How did that, what happened to make that shift happen?
You know, I think what happened is when you go to school for so many years, as I have, and you're in the world of the mind, you know, research, publishing things, it's a different world. I was trained to be in the space of the mind, and it was very safe there. It was very safe there, and um, I've done very well in that space, but I hadn't met myself.
Yeah.
And once I really wanted to meet who I was and feel my truth, rather than tell myself who I should be, and what I should think and all that. When I made that shift, obviously through something painful that happened in my life, when I did that is when I realized that my mind is very powerful to create and manifest and all that, but I just really wanted to get to know who I was and what was my truth. I needed to go into the heart space.
Love it.
And that's what it is. Yeah.
Love it. Again, thank you for your
Absolutely.
honesty. Thank you
Mhm.
for, and you would think from those people who are listening that Dr. Claudia has been my friend for lifetimes. I have to remind everybody listening and myself that we met about 16 minutes ago, or 35 minutes ago,
Yeah.
right? And I love the quality of the conversation. So, just a few more things. Would you say you're a leader or a follower?
I'm a leader.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me caveat that question a little bit, because I don't caveat any questions, as you could see from what but I want to know a little bit more about that. In the world that we live in now, so many people say that they're leaders. So many people are leaders.
Mhm.
And yet we lead, often what we see out in the world that we see is we lead within our silos, but we don't have the strength of leadership to disagree with our silos when our silos do something we need to disagree with.
Mhm.
The obvious places to look at is the political situation in the world today.
Mhm.
whether you're a pro-Trump or a pro-Democrat. It doesn't matter. Both sides do exactly the same thing.
Mhm.
So Trump has done some amazingly fabulous things, and he's also done some amazingly terrible things. But nobody leaves, nobody can say to you, we love this about what he did, and we're really embarrassed by what he did here.
Mhm.
In the Democratic world, it's the same way. They can't say, boy, some of the things have been really fabulous that he's done. They just, every time he turns around, they punch him in the face for doing something else or something
Mhm.
different. And there's
Mhm.
nobody that I know in the course of my life who, if every time they turn, is getting slaughtered by a group of people that are standing around them, they're not going to respond by saying, "But look what I did! Look what I did! Look what I did! Look what I did! Look what I did!" Right?
Mhm.
And I don't understand why, in the world that we live in today, we can't lead outside of our silos and just say to our silo, "That's not right what you're doing. That isn't like we want to do something good, but this isn't the way to do it. This isn't the way to do something good." And you could put a Democrat in front of your name or a Republican in front of your name. It doesn't matter. Both sides. The question is to both sides wherever you are.
Mhm.
So my question is, as a leader, what would you recommend to our leadership who is also leaders, if you even agree with my premise?
Hmm. I don't, when it comes to that, I don't really think that they need to tear each other down. Like you said, there's a duality that's always existing in our lives. The Democratic Party is not all bad. The Republican Party is not all good, vice versa. Um, but I think that if they can learn to be on opposing sides, but yet strengthen one another,
Yeah,
kind of work together in some way, not completely against each other, then maybe you can see more happen. It's not really a war. It's not really a war, but it seems to become that. See, like, how much dirt can I find on you? How much bad have you done?
yeah.
That's what it's become. I can do this better. Whenever there's all of that negativity, goods can't come from that. And that's what I feel.
How did we get there in your mind?
In my opinion, and I know this sounds interesting, but I've always said that people may end up in positions of power for various reasons, but there's a lot of work to do on the inside.
Yeah,
There's a lot of work. And when you've done work on the inside, by work, I mean cleaning house, taking out those weeds, getting in touch with your heart, loving yourself, being honest, being gentle. When you've done all of that, you're going to be different.
yeah,
And a lot of these people in power have learned how to be powerful and have learned how to get there, but they haven't done the inner work, and it always shows. I could always feel it. My energy can feel it.
yeah,
And so I think that's what's happening, is that there's people in power that haven't really sat down and looked inside. The inner world is not their interest.
yeah.
And so this is what you see happen.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Last question in the lightning round. I think we're going to make it through. Do you think people are more different than they are alike, or more similar than they are different?
I believe people are more similar than they are different. In fact, one of the things I always tell women, women think that men are so different, then they don't feel. And that's a good example I always use. I have had the most profound and emotional experiences, like conversations with men, and when
Yeah,
I've treated them and talked with them, um, we're more similar than we are different. We feel very similar emotions. We have very similar thoughts. We fear some of the similar things. We share joy in some of the same things. I've given many measures to clients, and one of the happiest times, that's one of the exams that says complete the sentence, one of the happiest times, my time with family.
yeah,
That's one that always comes up. Something you love the most, my children, my spouse. And so we're a lot more similar, I believe, than we are different. But again, we're not willing to acknowledge.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I leapfrog on every question I get asked. So, being that we are so much more similar to each other than we are different,
Hmm.
why do you think we focus on the places that we are different?
That's a good question. Um, you know, I don't have all the answers, but I think there's a lot of maybe there's some power to it. Maybe if you can focus on what is different in another person, you might feel more powerful depending on what your intention is. Maybe you want to feel unique. Maybe you do want to feel special. Maybe you do want to feel that you're not similar. There's an ego thing to it that I feel is coming to me.
Yeah.
There's an ego thing to it, but you know, when you're ready to say, "Hey, we are alike," there's more community. There's more closeness.
Yeah.
So it just depends where you are on your journey.
Love it.
Mm.
Do you believe, I think we asked this, you believe the world talks to us, that our bodies talk to us, that it's not just people that we need to listen to, but situations that happen around us, the universe, the world, the climate,
Absolutely, absolutely, yes.
so knowing that you believe that, do you feel in general there's a message that this world is trying to give us right now? And then after that, specifically to you, do you feel like this world is trying to say something to you after that? So first, do you feel like the world's trying to say something to us in general?
Yes, definitely. I believe that there's a lot of messages that are being communicated right now. I'll just touch on a few that have come to mind, which is, you know, how to understand fear, and not let it lead your life. It's very important. I also am seeing the message.
Pause for 1 minute.
Hmm.
Listeners, if you are caught up in the hypnosis of our conversation, because there can be a hypnotic effect to this conversation, I want you to shake yourself and be awake and just hear what Dr. Claudia just said. Because of all the answers that I've gotten, very, very rarely has one come so central. That
Hmm.
is to take a look at fear
Absolutely.
and what fear plays the place where fear plays in you and what it does to you and what it's trying to say, that the world may be taking a pause right now for you to have you look at where fear plays in your life.
Hmm.
Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just wanted to
Yeah,
highlight.
absolutely. Absolutely. Fear, we constantly right now are having to make the choice throughout the day. Are we going to fear? And we start playing that story in our mind of everything that could happen. I'm going to inhale the coronavirus right now as soon as I walk out of my house. Or we can strengthen that muscle of trust. And so I believe right now that's a message that's coming across is, how are you doing in that space? How are you doing in that space of trusting, which is for me having faith or having fear? Which one of the two are you going to choose? Because you have to be disciplined right now. The other message that I feel is out there right now is honoring life. There's something very beautiful about taking a look. We're always talking about how many people are dying. And so it really makes you take a look at mortality, and just existing in this incarnation, in this lifetime, and how you're going to honor life. How would you honor it right now? How do you want to go back to the drawing board and really appreciate that you have life right now? And so I feel there's that message too. And something else that I believe that is happening is just a newfound sense of appreciation for connectedness, because we've been deprived of it. Appreciating the little things that we took for granted. So there's this appreciation that can develop right now if we take a look as just the little things that we took for granted, such as going to a restaurant together and having, dining close to other people, hearing them, feeling that, just knowing that one day we can do that again, and appreciating these little things, not taking them for granted. So those are the things that come to my mind globally.
And personally, do you feel like the world is trying to share some message with you?
Personally, I was supposed to actually get married in 3 months.
Wow.
My wedding was scheduled for October 15th of this year. I've never been married. I'm going to be 43 this month as well.
Happy
And
birthday and
thank you.
congratulations.
um, and so I have learned that there's a message with that too, which is I'm always reminded to trust the journey. That we can set something on our calendar, um, and we can have these visions and these dreams that we're hoping for, but I'm learning to trust even more and to let go, and to know that the gifts are coming and the dreams are coming, but they don't have to come in the order that I thought they would. um, I'm learning to also strengthen my faith, because there are moments where I have to completely tune out everything and just trust the happy place, trust the happy place and make that choice. And, I'm learning to coexist with a fiance that's here all the time. So for me, it's like, oh, how do I get creative and just have my alone time? Because I really feel it's important is honor your alone time, honor your time with nature, honor your time with, God or higher source or universe. And so just being creative in this space, not looking at the negatives only, counting out the positives, and staying in the moment. So I'm practicing all those things that sound really good, and it's just a time to really practice them and embrace them. So.
Love it. Dr. Claudia, you've said a lot. I want to give you one last opportunity to just give one little piece of advice to a world that could use some advice right now. What would be that one piece you would give?
I would just say let's take baby steps, one baby step in front of the other, and take a look in front of you and trust that we're all going to get through this. We're all going to get through this. Don't lose that faith. Keep your eyes on the light, like I said, on the love, and protect your mind, protect your person, and just know that everything's going to be all right. Keep trusting that we all will get through.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely.
And if people want to get in touch with you, which I can't imagine they haven't fallen in love with you like I have, how would they do that?
Well, you can email me now. I'm actually starting a new Facebook page, which will be up pretty soon. But for now, you can always email me, Dr. Claudia .s@gmail. I get emails from different people that want to communicate. I'm coaching clients, so I'm doing a lot of Zoom stuff. But yeah, I'm always open to answer questions, or if someone needs support from me or anything like that, I'm here. So very thankful for that.
I want to thank you again for being here with us.
Absolutely.
I love when a stranger shows up, even when I think they're not going to show up. And they show up in abundance and really touch my heart and steal it. And that's what happened in this conversation. I just love your presence. I love what you do. I love the way you show up in the world. And it's often so hard for me to believe that I haven't known you my whole life, from the vulnerability and the openness and the honesty and the truthfulness of our conversation. What a beautiful gift.
Thank you very much.
For those of you who are listening, thank you so much for showing up. And take heed in this conversation. What could happen if you were to reach out right now and make contact with someone you never met before and invite them to have just a short conversation? What could open up for you? What could you learn? Who could become a friend of yours that you never even knew was possibly, that even knew existed? Stranger things have happened than what happens when you sit with a stranger. There's a beautiful moment that comes when that happens. And I invite you all to start to reconnect a disconnected world by taking the time to just Be interested in another person enough that you sit with them and invite them to tell you who they are and what they believe. It's been my absolute privilege to have you, Dr. Claudia, here with me today.
Thank you. Likewise.
And I look forward to our next conversation. Who knows what that'll bring?
Thank you for having me. And it's been, even though I haven't met you, there's a certain energy present,
Yes.
that I have felt throughout the entire conversation. And I'm always thankful for these pockets of just a beautiful reminder that, out of nowhere, something very special can happen if you're open to it. I always say that.
100,000%.
I always say that, So even though it may sound weird to respond to a post that says, "Hey, how would you like to talk to a stranger?" I always think, yes, why not? Because there's always a rainbow. There's always magic on the other side. I always think that. And it's something like that was confirmed today. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely, my honor. And it happened very quickly. She responded yesterday, and today we were on the phone. So I mean, how beautiful is that? So again, take a moment, go up to someone you don't know, invite someone you never knew before, talk to someone you know mildly. Just let's start conversations again, not conversations where we fight with each other or tell each other what we believe, but where we're open to listen to what another person believes and see what happens. Until next conversation, I thank you all for being here. Dr. Claudia, again, thank you. And thank you,
Thank you very
listeners,
much.
for being here with us.